Now, more on that story in our headlines, because the UK's 4 chief medical officers have issued their first official advice on the use of screens and social media by children and young people. They've urged parents to put their children's phones outside the bedroom at night, to ban the devices at meal times, and to never assume a child is happy to have their photo published online. Our health correspondent Dominic Hughes has more on this.
Learning about internet safety starts early. Important lessons for these Liverpool primary school children around information and identity.
Let's start with C.
The do's and don'ts of the online world.
Consent!
The issue of consent is one of the areas covered by new advice from the UK's chief medical officers.
What am I not doing?
It includes talking about safely sharing photos and information online, keeping phones out of bedrooms to help with sleep, and taking a break to get moving after a couple of hours on screens. Advice designed to help parents navigate their way through a new and unfamiliar landscape.
The advice we give is based on strong evidence about good, healthy development of children and young people. Why have we given it related to this issue? We had a careful discussion among the chief medical officers, and we believe that we should adopt in this country a precautionary approach to protecting our children.
How to police and balance their children's use of screens can be a challenge for many parents. So, for mum Kate, any guidance from experts is welcome.
I feel like being a parent, you're constantly learning and informing yourself and getting the best advice you can. So I think that's enormously helpful. I can imagine for some parents they'd feel like they're just being told what to do and they feel they've got it sorted and they might resent that. But personally speaking, yeah, I'm really glad somebody's going to give me a bit of input there.
The advice also contains a voluntary code of conduct for industry, something that will no doubt be explored when health ministers meet bosses from Instagram later today. Dominic Hughes, BBC News, Liverpool.
And with me now is the psychologist and ambassador for the online safety organisation Internet Matters, Dr. Linda Papadopoulos. Very good to have you with us, Linda. So this is really significant, isn't it? Because it is the first official advice to parents about their children's use of mobile devices, social media, etc. And, you know, parents know that their children shouldn't be online too much, but it's useful sometimes to have some guidance, to have some specific tips, isn't it?
It is. Look, this is such an interesting area because, for parents, they have an idea of, what their kids should eat and what, how much, exercise they should do. But because their kids are growing up with social media, it's constantly changing. There are these questions, well, how much is enough? What kind of platforms are okay? So finally, we're getting some clarity here. Now, of course, we don't have a smoking gun. We don't have a causal link between, X amount of time of social media will cause this. However, there's some good common sense advice in there that you kind of had in your report. Things like, having some balance in life, sleep, eat, move, and that's so important.
That phrase common sense is very important, isn't it? Because as you say, Professor Dame Sally Davis, the Chief Medical Officer for England, says a review of evidence hasn't proven a clear link between use of social media, mobile devices and poorer mental health. And I've noticed some interesting comments online this morning from some people saying, but where's the evidence? However, it is common sense, isn't it, that, your children need to be doing other things. They need to learn how to interact socially at meal times and not have their face stuck in a phone, for example.
Well, absolutely. And it's also, it's not just about time spent online. It's time spent doing what online. So if your child is spending an hour and a half at night setting up a GoFundMe page to help a friend or setting up a charity online, great. If they're spending an hour and a half online looking at pro-ana sites or looking at images that are unhealthy or looking at self-harming sites, then clearly that's not okay. So it's absolutely about ensuring that you aren't spending too much time online, but also the time that you're spending well. And I think it's these more nuanced discussions that we need to have.
From the perspective of Internet Matters, what does the organisation feel about the responsibility of social media companies towards young users? We know that the Health Secretary is talking to Instagram today on this subject.
I think with Internet Matters, we feel very much that there needs to be sort of different strata of help. And absolutely, it starts with the child, explaining to the child, the parent at home, at schools, but also with the Internet companies, they need to as well pitch in. And I think,
Do you think the will is there, though, from the Internet companies, or are they just, saying what they think people want them to say?
Look, I don't think it's in their interest to not address this. I genuinely don't. So I think there's a genuine will. Now, the motivation hopefully comes from a good place. I don't think they're out to do any harm, but I think harm happens inadvertently when we don't look at these things. And I think now what's happening is we're seeing them all begin to look at these things a lot more seriously. Look, you need to remember Snapchat's still a child. Facebook is a teenager itself. These are young companies. So, as we get information, what we want from these giants is to listen and respond. And I think this is a first step towards that.
Okay, Dr. Linda Papadopoulos, thank you very much for your thoughts on that story today.